Hello everyone and welcome to our channel. In this video we'll be doing a quick exercise number 2 in our Euclidean geometry playlist. So on angles, parallel lines and transversal lines. So let's get straight into it. So in our first question we have that find the values of the unknowns. First of all, we first look at the obvious things we are given. So in this case we can see arrows on a line. So if you recall from our previous videos, that means that line is parallel to another line that has the same number of arrows. So in this case, we can see that AB has one arrow and CD also has one arrow. That means AB is parallel to CD. And from our previous video, we introduced parallel lines and we say that if we have parallel lines, then we are allowed to use FUN, the abbreviation FUN. So F for corresponding angles, U for interior angles. So these two angles should add up to 180 degrees or 180 degrees. And we get, then we get the Z or the N, the interior angles are equal. So if we take Z, it's still going to be the interior angles are equal. So it doesn't matter where the F, U or N is looking at or which direction it's facing. So let's look at our sketch again. So we got parallel lines and we can also see that this angle at C is 90 degrees. So that means BC is perpendicular to CG, and I'm going to introduce perpendicular lines in the future videos. But yes, so we have a 90 degrees. So now let's get to solving our unknowns. Looking at this sketch, I'm going to use color so that you can see what I'm talking about and where I am coming from. So we want to solve for X because that's the one I can see is much easier to solve. So we can draw our Z or N from AB, so line AB to CD, because BC is a transversal line. So we can see Z for alternating angles, the interior angles are equal. So these two angles should be equal. So 60 here and X should, if 60 is there, then X should also be 60. And our reason is alternating angles. So you write it as following. So X is equals to 60 degrees with the sign. So I'm just going to write it in words because I can't get that at the moment. So 60 degrees and Y alternating. You can just say alt angles, so alternating angles. So if we have that our angle X is equals to 90 degrees, we then move forward to determine the rest of our unknowns. So from the look of things, S will be the easier one to go on with. So if let's name this angle C1 and this entire angle here angle C2. So looking at this sketch, if we add C1 plus C2, we should get 180. Why? Because this is a straight line and we say that a straight angle is 180. So if an angle is divided into multiple angles, so if this straight angle is divided into multiple angles like S, X and this 90, then if you add them all together, they should give you 180 degrees. And your reason is angles on a straight line. So if this is 90, then this whole part here will also be 90 because 90 plus 90 is 180. And we already have X. So we say 90 minus X, which is 60, will give us S. So we write it as follows. So S is equals to 90 minus 60 degrees is equals to 30 degrees. Y angles on a straight line. And so this is how you go about solving for S. So let's fill in our answers. So we've got that angle S is 30 degrees. 30 degrees. And now let's move on to Y, P, and R. And looking at this figure again, I can see that Y is equals to P. Y, vertically opposite angles. Can you see it's vertically opposite? Because there are two straight lines that meet at this point right there. And so Y is equals to P because of vertically opposite angles. So that's our reason. So let's see how we can get Y. And if we get Y, we can get R by saying, because we know that angles on a straight line adds up to 180. So if we add if we add Y and R, it should give us 180 degrees because they're angles on a straight line. So let's see how we can get either P or Y. So looking at this, we have our parallel lines, and so we can't really see F. We can't. We can see, so F is corresponding angles, and we can see co-interior angles. Co-interior angles is the U. So let me just highlight the part I'm talking about so that we can all see what is going on and what I am referring to. So we have our U right here. Because the transversal line is in between our parallel lines, which is parallel line CD and AB. So we can see that this will be our angles that we are looking at. So the two interior angles in our U shape. So that's our co-interior angles. So if we add 160 and we add Y, we should get 180 because that is what co-interior angles mean. So let's do that right now. So we say Y is equals to, okay, let's say 160 plus Y should give us 180 degrees. Y, co-interior angles So I'm going to mention our parallel lines AB parallel to CD. So that's our reason. And so we solve for Y, so we get Y as the subject of the formula. So 180 minus 160 is 20 degrees. So we have that our Y is 20 degrees. And so let's move on. So now we have Y as 20 degrees, and we say that Y is going to be equal to P because of vertically opposite angles. So our P is also 20 degrees. And now let's move on to, so our last unknown is R. So how do you get R? R is on a straight line. So let me just highlight that again so that you can see what we are talking about. So we have straight line CD. We can use either CD or EF. So let me just use EF, and we'll also use CD just to show you that you'll still get the same answer. So looking at straight line, we have that Y is 20 degrees. So let me just fill that in. (20°). And so if Y is 20 degrees, Y plus R should give us 180 degrees. So Y plus R should give us 180 degrees. And our reason is angles on a straight line. Angles on a straight line. And if we fill in our values, we already have Y. So that's 20 plus R is equals to 180 degrees. And if we take r as the subject of the formula, so we'll say 180 minus 20, which is 160 degrees. So yes, our r is 160 degrees. And so I said y. So I said if we have y as 20 degrees, then this y plus this x right there should give us 180 degrees because they're angles on a straight line. So that's how we got our r to be 160 degrees. I went this long way round because I just wanted to show you that if you don't notice f, the shape or letter F, U, or N, you can always go the long way round and you'll still get the answer. But we can clearly see that if this one is 160 degrees, that there was actually corresponding angles. Looking at, if we have our F as this, so I'm going to highlight it quickly so we can see what I'm talking about. So if this was our F, so that this was our F, and we said we look at the two interior angles, so we looked at 160 and 160. Can you see that forms an F? And so it does not matter where your F is looking at and how it's looking, as long as you can spot it, you can then derive that your angles are equal to certain angles just because you have noticed or spotted F, U, or N. Let's move on to the next exercise. Find the values of the unknowns. So we have A, C, B, 42, and O. And so our first step is to notice or spot the obvious that we are given. And in this case, all I see is that we are given a 42 degrees right there. And we are given two parallel lines, C, D is parallel to A, B. And I said, if you have noticed that, then you are welcome to use fun. So F for corresponding, U for co-interior. So co-interior, that angle right there should be added to that angle to get 180 degrees. And N would be the two interior angles. So now let's look at the sketch and let's see what we can do from here. So we can see that 42 is right there, and we have two straight lines that meet at a certain point. So we can use vertically opposite angles. So B is also equals to 42 degrees. So let me just write that in a different color so we can see what's going on. So 42 degrees. And so if we have 42 degrees here and we want to use our fun, so let's see if we can spot any corresponding angles. So let's just highlight our F's. I can see an F that goes this way. I can also see an F that goes that way. So this and this is equal. I can see an F going. So let me use another different color. I can see an F going this way. So I can see that this angle here is close to that angle there. And yes, that's all I see. Those are all the F's I can see. And then we get, and another F right there. So we can get an F going that way. And then let's look at our co-interior angles. So in this case, our co-interior angles would be this or that. So if we add E plus C, we should get 180. And if we add D plus 42, we should also get 180. And then our Z or our N, we can see that there's a Z right there. This angle should be equal to that angle. And if we draw our Z going that way, this angle, interior angle, should be equal to that angle. So can you see that all these angles can be determined using different methods or different reasoning skills, but you still get to the answer, and the answer should still be the same. So if you use corresponding angles, if you use cointerior angles, or if you use alternating angles, you should still be able to get the same answer. So here, let's continue from where I had left off. We got that B is 42 degrees. And let's use our easiest one, which is the alternating angles or alternating interior angles. So let me draw a Z right there just to show you what I'm talking about. So we can see that that's the interior and that's the interior. And because we have parallel lines, that means E is also equals to 42 degrees. So I'm going to fill that in now, 42 degrees. Why? Alternating angles. So let's look at what else can we do. I can also use the same reason, so alternating angles, but our Z would look like this, and so there's D and C are equal to each other. Unfortunately, we don't have values for them yet, but let's look at how we can get them using just fun. So let's have a look at corresponding angles, and I said that we can find 4 F's in this figure. The first one is this one. So 42, can you see that this is 42 and that is 42 also, because it's corresponding angles. So same side of the transversal line and same side of the parallel lines. Can you see that the angle is beneath the parallel line? The angle is also beneath the parallel line. So G will have to be 42 degrees. And it matches out because we just said E is also 42 degrees, and it still makes sense that G and E are equal because of vertically opposite angles. Let's look at our F in a different way now. So I'm going to highlight just for us to see the picture once again. So there's our F that I'm going to be looking at the moment. We already have E and we already have 42. So let's move on to the next question. So we have the following. So AD is parallel to EG because of the number of arrows on line AD and EG. We also have that BF is parallel to CF. So they are only parallel to each other and each other only because of the number of arrows on those lines. Then we also have that CF is parallel to DG because they have 2 arrows on the line and they are only parallel to each other only. So let's begin by, because we have parallel lines, then we can use fun. So if we can note or see F, U, or N, or Z, then we get our answers. So that's what we are looking for. We're looking for F, U, or N in our figure. So I'm going to start off by finding corresponding angles, which is our F. So corresponding angles in this case would be, so if you draw a F like this, that is parallel, so this line is parallel to CG. So that's how I draw my F. The 2 lines of the F should be the parallel lines, the corresponding parallel lines. So if that is 70, then this angle should also be 70. So let's fill that in now. 70 degrees. And let's look for another F in our diagram. So if we have another F here, we can see that we won't get much from this because this whole angle needs to be equal to that whole angle. So let's look at another F. And we don't have that angle, so we can't get that angle. So we have 2 unknown angles, so we can't use that F or that corresponding F. Yeah. Let's look for another F. So let's look at it from this point of view. So we have that parallel line parallel to this line That's how we draw our F. So if this angle here is 80, then that angle there, which is C1, is 80 degrees, because that's how our F is constructed. So let's fill in our, and when you see that you can't really see the F's in this figure, try using cointerior angles or alternating angles, so which is the U and the N. So let's look for N's or Z's in our figure. So if I'm to look at this figure, I can see a Z right there, and I can see that this angle here would be equals to that angle there. So let's mark it. So this angle here would be equal to that angle there. Using another highlighter or color, I can also draw my Z like that, and it would mean that this angle here is equals to that angle there. So let's mark it the same color. So if this angle is equals to that angle, then that angle can also be pitch. And now let's move on to, so we have looked for our corresponding angles and our alternating angles. Let's have a look at our co-interior angles. So you keep juggling these things around up until you figure out the answer or find a way to answer the question. So right now I have exhausted all my F's and all my N's, and now it's up to my co-interior angles to do the job. So let's have a look and let's just identify our U shapes. So we have BC, so we have that U right there, because this line here is parallel to that line. That means this whole angle here, so C1 plus C2 should be plus, added with this B, should give us 180 degrees. That is what co-interior angles mean. So let's write that down. So we have that 70 degrees, so that is our B, plus C1 plus C2, angle C2, is equals to 180 degrees. Why? Co-interior angles. And so let's figure out what our C2 is, because we already have C1. So it's going to be 70 plus 80 plus our unknown C2 is equals to 180. So if you make C2 our subject of the formula, we have that 180 minus 80 is 100, and 100 minus 70 is 30. So I just solved for C2. So we have 30 degrees for our C2. So let's fill that in. 30 degrees. And we say this 30 is equals to F2. So F2 is also going to be 30 because of alternating angles. And it's also going to be equal to this 30 because of the same reason, alternating angles. If we can see our Z like that. And because we got these angles right there, we can try again. We can go back to corresponding angles. So if we were to draw our F, it would look like that. So I want to make it a bit, so it would look like that. And this angle here would be equal to that angle there. And you can, as you can see, the whole C2 plus C3 would be equal to just D1. So if we add them together, which is 30 plus 70, we get 100. So that means our D1 would be 100 degrees. And it only makes sense because if we add D1 plus this 80, we get 180, which is angles on a straight line. And if we have this now, we can use co-interior angles again using that shape, that U shape right there. And because these three arrows on the parallel lines or on the lines are on top, does not mean that at the bottom the lines are now not parallel to each other. So these three lines on the top means the entire line is parallel to the entire line of AD. So we have that D1 plus D3 will give us 180 because of co-interior angles. So if say D1 plus G3, it should give us 180 degrees. So let me write that down. Angle D1, so that D with the caret, and if you still don't know how to label angles, please refer back to my previous videos in the angles video. I think it was the second video in a Euclid and geometry playlist. So we have that angle D1 plus angle G3 is equals to 180 degrees co-interior angles. So if we substitute D1 is 100 plus our unknown G3 is equals to 180 degrees. So G3 is equals to 180 minus 100 is 80 degrees. So we can fill that in and say that G3 is 80 degrees. And moving on, we can go back again to corresponding angles and we can try to make the F shape. So that will be our F, and this angle would be equals to that angle. So F3 is equals to G3. Why? Corresponding angles. So you write all that down. G3 is equals to 80, and so our F3 is also equals to 80 degrees. And from here we can see that G1 plus G2 plus G3 should give us 180 degrees. So let me write that down. So G1 plus G2 plus G3 is equals to 180 degrees. Why? Angles on a straight line. So we have to write that down. That's our reason. We always have to write our reasons down. Angles on a straight line. And so if we don't know G1, but we know G2 to be 30, sorry about that. So G2 is 30 and G3 is 80 degrees, equals to 180. So our G1 would be 180 minus 80 is 100 minus 30. So G1 is going to be 70 degrees. So our G1 is 70. And we can try again to look at our F, or look for our F. So it would look something like that. That means this whole angle, so G1 plus G2 is equals to F1 plus F2. And if our G2 is equals to 30 and our F2 is equals to 30, that means our G1 is equals to F1. Moreover, we can make this F much simpler. So we can use these two parallel lines, so the ones that have one arrow, so like that. And we can see that G1 is equals to F1. So if our G1 is 70, then our F1 is also 70. So let's write that down. So our F1 is 70. And we can use co-interior angles again, because we have a U shape right there and we have one angle. And we know that this angle plus that angle should give us, so F1 plus B1 should give us 180 because of co-interior angles. So if that is 70, then this would be 110, because 110 plus 70 should give us 180. And that's it in this figure or sketch, because we have figured out all our angles And yes, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. See you in our next video as we tackle some more questions to just get the concepts better and to understand the basic or the introduction of Euclidean geometry before we go any further into the rule stuff. So thank you guys for watching. See you in our next video. Bye.